Hello and welcome. My name is Mark Blatstein, physician founder of Physician Pre-Sentence Report Service. Today, I'm going to review what the new director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons is trying to do to get the First Step Act, Second Chance Act stacked and working so that individuals can get out of prison towards home confinement quicker. This is something that was supposed to have been accomplished within the first 5 years after the First Step Act became law in 2018. Obviously, that did not happen. And so after we've been through several administrators, or excuse me, several BOP directors, and now with Director Marshall, Deputy Director Smith, recently they put together a task force regarding the First Step Act, and they have made announced and unannounced visits to several Bureau of Prison facilities. And in doing that, they have had it's been a learning session for them where they've come away with 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 an understanding that one, that inmates and the families are pretty distressed and frustrated because they're being told either that the First Step Act doesn't matter, the people are not going to be released early, or that the halfway houses have no bed space and that they're not going to be released early, or that when the families call the halfway houses, there's bed space and everybody's confused. Except for the inmates who are being held longer than necessary, it gets to be very, very frustrating. When he speaks with some of the BOP staff, there if there are those that are trying to really do their best, but are not given the amount of support from the Sentencing and Designation Computation Center in Grand Prairie, Texas, where they don't know what to do, and so they're kind of caught in the middle. And then you have other staff where the same as you have at home, there are just people that are good people and people that are not. And so, unfortunately, if you're stuck with the latter, it just enhances a bad time for you. And so, what he has done is that following the visit that he and both his deputy director made, is that they were able to identify individuals in the they were able to identify individuals in the residential reentry centers that were eligible for home confinement. And he has now his staff at Grand Prairie, Texas, and they manually now calculate home confinement placement dates using both the First Step Act and Second Chance Acts. And then they relay these dates to the residential reentry management offices to accelerate the transitions for those individuals to home confinement as well, while freeing up the residential reentry centers bed space. What that does is that, at least on paper, is that it should now free up those beds for those individuals who are still incarcerated that need the bed space. At the same time, what they're doing is that they're reviewing the incarcerated individuals again, one by one, calculating their First Step Act credits and Second Chance Act for those individuals, and they're determining which have to go to home confinement and who goes to the halfway house or residential reentry centers. This is being done manually. This is not going to happen overnight. And unfortunately, it's going to take up to a year for it to be running correctly across 100, 120, however many prisons are left by the time, the closures are done. And this is just one thing that is facing, this new director of the Federal Bureau of Prisons. I mean, in addition to, there are staff shortages everywhere. You have some prisons where, you have, you have the First Step Back programs, there are waiting lists. And the reason is that sometimes is because you have teachers that have to be subbing in as correction staff. You have medical delays because nurses and other medical staff, techs, have to be subbing in as correction staff. There's staff shortages. You have, a crumbling infrastructure. And so all of these things are hitting his plate at the same time. It's not our fault. It's nothing that you can have any control over. But the one thing that you do have control over, at least from my perspective, is that I wouldn't depend on the Federal Bureau of Prisons having an accurate count of all of your First Step Back credits and everything you do. By that I mean, I call this insurance. Everything you do, you should have documentation for. If when you take these classes, you should be documented on your own, because if you're stopped 6, 7 months later, you need to have your own records to make sure that the Federal Bureau of Prisons, that their records are accurate. And the only way you're going to know that is if you kept your own records. And while you're doing that, you can maybe jot down some notes of the classes that you took, who taught them, and maybe something that you learned, anything, because that can become part of your release plan, just as a side note. But you should also keep records of any interaction you've had with any correction staff, good or not so good. If you go in with a medical record, every time you have an interaction with medical staff, with medical, and if it's good or not good, it should be written down, because there's too many times, especially if they're not following your medical record that you came in with through your pre-sentence report. I'm assuming that your pre-sentence interview was comprehensive and your medical record there was comprehensive, that your records while you're inside, everything is written down, because this is going to be your main vehicle towards a compassionate release. It's so important. And this is why I say it's insurance. On the outside, you have health insurance, you have auto insurance, you have home insurance. You hope you don't need it until you do. Well, by you having a paper trail of everything that happens to you while you're there, it may seem like an extra, something you have to do until you need that record. If you're the smartest person in the room, don't tell anybody you're the smartest person in the room. But if you can mentor someone, maybe you can help tutor someone. Maybe you can teach a class. If you like to read, or you have other interests, or you're not sure what to do eventually when you get out, if you have family, friends, maybe you can compile a book list, Amazon paperback books, and have, one or two sent in every month. And you can keep a running log of the content that you think interests you. You don't have to write down the whole book, but things that, you may want to remember at a later date. All of this becomes part of a release plan, which is important. And you don't need a release plan with the Second Chance Act and First Step Act. But until the First Step Act and Second Chance Act are running, the only thing that your case managers are going to be able to judge you by is constructive activities that they see you doing. And can't think of a better thing or better way for them to judge what you're doing than, by what they see you doing and how you interact with them during your meetings, as you provide them copies of either what you're reading, or how you're, mentoring others or tutoring others, or maybe you have a class. All of this is written down. And so eventually, while it's law that you don't have to have a job, or a character letter from someone that says we would love to have him live at, or her live at our house when he leaves, or a character or letter that says we would love to hire him. He's a talented individual. We understand he went to prison, but we trust him immensely. These are two great letters, because it tells the judge, it tells the halfway house, excuse me, it tells the judge, and it tells the Bureau of Prisons that you have a place to live and that you have a job. These are big things, because the judge doesn't want to see you back in the courtroom, and the halfway house and the case manager wants to know that they have a role in playing to make sure that you leave successfully. And so these are all very important things. And so what goes into what Director Marshall is doing is that he has people at the Sentencing and Designation Center, Grand Prairie, Texas, is that they are identifying individuals in the residential reentry centers eligible for home confinement. And they are literally manually calculating one by one home confinement placement dates for both the First Step and Second Chance Acts. They are now relaying those dates to the residential reentry manager offices to accelerate those persons' transitions to home confinement. That frees up bed space. Then what they're doing is they're going to go now into all and reviewing all those who are incarcerated individuals, and do the same thing, and determine whether they are to be released to home confinement or to a halfway house. Now, as you can imagine, this is a huge undertaking. It's not going to happen overnight. And so the only way that you can help yourself is by demonstrating to the case managers as best you can that you're a good candidate today. And that's the only way that I can think to do it, is kind of what I've just said. Good time credits. These are big. You get 54 days a year up front before that year starts. Don't lose that good time credit. Don't borrow anyone's cell phone. It seems, yeah, just don't do it. Eventually the phones get found out. Whether if a number that's related to you is on that telephone, you've got a problem. And the problem can be, either turns you into a snitch, puts you in solitary confinement, results in another charge, or sends you into another prison, or you lose all your good time credit. If you're taking RDAP, a drug program, you can get that time off in addition to your first step back credit, so that if your sentence is up to 36 months, you could get up to 12 months off your sentence. If it's greater than 30 months, you could receive up to 9 months. If it's greater than 24 months, you could receive up to 6 months. A general overview of Second Chance Act. If your sentence is greater than 5 years or 60 months, the last 6 months can be on home confinement. If your sentence is less than 5 years or 60 months, the last 10% is on home confinement. But if you've done all this extra work while you're there and you've caught the eye of your case manager, there's nothing saying that they can't alter the amount of time that you spend on home confinement. There's nothing saying that that cannot happen. And so I believe in documentation of everything that you do when you're inside. It's critical. I call it insurance. At home, you hope you have health insurance. You hope you don't need it, but if you break your leg, you're glad you do. And so that's why I stress this. I hope you found this helpful. I hope you have a good day and stay safe. And thank you for listening.